recording now. All right, so I'm going to bring up Unreal. Okay. So when we get here, again, these are all existing projects. You won't see any, you may not see any of these here. What you want to do is you want to go to games. These have the right now the game templates that you want to be using. We're going to look at third person. We're going to start with the third person. We will look at the first person and we'll look at the top down. Eventually, I think we get to top down at some point. I think but we'll look at third person. So click on that. Click on this button for third person. Make sure Blueprint is highlighted. Um, you will get to using C++ in the following course for this. Again, target platform is desktop. Make sure you set this to scalable. Okay. Otherwise, Unreal is going to go full blast on your machine when it doesn't need to. And we're not doing anything. And if we're not doing anything pretty, all right, we're not diving into shaders in a significant way. We're not trying to be photorealistic. We're not trying to be pretty. So we can be scalable, and it will be perfectly fine. You do want the starter content. We don't need ray tracing because we're not doing anything again in that pretty category. Again, ultimately, you will want to say this will be wallet 2. I'll do wallet B. Game 1303, and this will be again this will be a good way to start with this project. For this project name. Again, the project location down here, I'm showing you C working on Unreal. So I'm going to click create. We'll get a new fresh project. It's going to tell you new plugins available. You can just dismiss this because we're not using any plugins at the moment. You'll see text right here, third person template. You can click on that and you can hit delete to delete that. You don't. Yeah. It's just text. No big deal. All right. First things first. This panel right here is the viewport, and there's a little show tabs here. There's a little blue tab right here. You click on that, it'll show you this. This is what the actual name is, viewport number 1. So this is the viewport view. Details. So if I click on something in the scene, it will bring up its details. So here it is: transform, location, rotation, the scale. Right now, what you're looking here is a lot of objects here, are cubes, or they are part of a circle or a ramp, and they've been scaled in particular ways. What we'll see is, and again, here is the bottom floor, it's 30 by 35 by 0.5. This is going to do some weird things when we go. So down here, there is the output log. So if there's anything, you can see there's lots of stuff that being put into the console window. We're not doing anything with the console at the moment, so don't worry. But here's the content draw. And this is where assets are. So we'll go back to all, and there is the content folder. Because we added content folder, gave us this folder. Otherwise, we'd have characters, level prototype, and third person be the other. These are things related to the third person portion. But under starter content, we have materials. We have props, which are going to be other things that we can throw in. Like, again, I'm going to throw this in. So I just threw in the SM statue. Okay, let's talk about materials briefly. We will go over more detail with them, but right now, the goal, again, let's go back to start comment. We'll go to materials. Bring this up. And to bring up the console window, you can use Shift Control Space. Brings up this window. So this is you can have it docked. So if you're going to do a lot of things, if you are, let me get this live. There we go. So if you were basically, you in theory have this. This is a window that can be pulled out. Again, this window can be pulled out and like put onto another screen, for example. I'm going to keep it as one screen right now. But like this object right here has, we go look at that. Look at it. There's, here we go. So you can see that this object has two elements, two materials. So there's a silver piece and there's a glass piece. We can actually go in and be like, hey, I want, here's the gold for the statue. Hey, well, I'm on the, actually, we can pull this down and be like, type in gold. And this is a material that is gold. And now it's a gold statue. And I'd be like, oh, the base looks kind of with that. There is a hexagon tactile with a pulse, so you can see that it's now got that hexagon and it's got the blue, and you can see that it is being affected by the pulse of emission is what's being called. Material stuff, cool. Just showing you these so that you can play with them. Like here, here is, it's using the M prototype. Instead, let's go with a ground grass. And this is, now the issue that we're dealing with right now is that this object is huge. It's 30 by 35. So normally it would be much smaller, and this wouldn't be so spread out. So we will try gravel, and gravel's working better apparently. So don't be surprised. Like again, this wall right here. If we go, let's do some. I'll do cut stone. And you can see it's basically stretched out. For this week, don't worry about this. Is what I'm trying to tell you. You can't adjust the UVs easily right now. It's something that you'll be able to. This is a question of dealing, like you would probably later export this mesh out, the size of this mesh out to like a 3ds Max or Blender, build a better version of the mesh, bring it back in, replace it, and you would have the correct UV, texture scaling on it. So don't worry about texture scaling this week. It's basically my message. You can right click right here and hide the tabs as well, which we want because we need the space. So details. Outliner is basically what is in the scene, and I'm going to collapse these for a moment. So block 1, where is it? There we go. So over here, you've got this. There's four different objects. There's this big piece here, this piece, this block here, curve here, curve there. And see in here, this is in the block 1. Select all of these. You can see that this is being constructed by all of these pieces. So that's something to be aware of, is that like this folder is here designed to manage multiple objects in the scene. The first term, so the first term that I'm going to throw at you that's important with Unreal Engine. When you are dealing with things that can be in your level, they are some sort of an actor. Whether it's an actor itself or inherited from an actor, if it can be placed in the scene, it's some sort of actor. So again, this statue right here is a static mesh actor. It is a actor that has a static mesh component to it to be in the scene. These guys are static mesh actors, and they have basically their physics turned on. Physics. So simulate physics. It's a checkbox. True. What's its mass? What's its dampening? Did you enable gravity? This is more relevant if the first-person shooter, because you can shoot these things all over the place. So I'm gonna come back. Another actor that you should be aware about is like the player start. So we don't actually have the player in the level. We spawn a player. So basically, there is a so the next level up from actor are things are called pawns. Pawns are things that players can control. So there's a player pawn, that default player pawn that comes with this project. I'll press play. I'll show you to you. And there it is. So here is third-person character. A character is a specific type of pawn that does humanoid things. So this is actually we saw this come about with Unreal Engine 3.3, 3.5. They've had that next level. Basically, they had a class just for characters, just to handle humanoid characters. And there's all sorts of different things in here that we'll talk about. Or again, here's the player start, player state. There's another one. We'll talk about this in another class, but we'll talk about the player controller. So the player controller is a representative of you as the player. So on a game, you're on a game, you're on a game, you're on a game. We all have player controllers. Locally, we have our player controller. How that player controller is represented over the network is another issue. Come back next year and get through the C++ course. We'll talk about that. That's what I'm teaching in another course this term. So um, there is also the yeah, and there's the game state class. Basically, think of this as the command and control. Later on, we'll write rules. Like the rules of CTF would have its own game state, and the rules of CTF would be part of that class. It would know what's going on with the flags, who's got what score. These are how much time is left on the map. These are all things that would be part of that game state. I'm gonna go in. Basically, you click in here, and you can use WSAD to move around. Use the mouse to direct which way is forward. Space is to jump. Over there. No, no. So an actor is anything in the scene. So like these walls are all actors because they're static mesh actors. Anything you can place in the scene is some sort of actor. And I know that it's um, wasn't always that case. If it was like when we go back in older engines, they had what was called BSP, which was the world, and they weren't. It was the world was considered an actor, and the BSP was static stuff. But we've now moved from that old BSP system to basically build it with a mesh. That's basically the philosophy since I think literally from Unreal Engine 2 is build it with a mesh. BSP is binary space partition. It's an old way of constructing. So Quake 1, Unreal Engine 1 used this. You basically you built brushes that were solid or were triggers, or you carved things out in Unreal. You could carve. There were brushes that you could carve things out. But it's an older system, and we basically all those systems have gone away pretty much. Um, so yeah, how this engine performs versus that Unreal Engine 1 has been changed dramatically. Um, so actor is anything in the level. Pawn is what the player can take control of. So the player controller is the puppet master, and it takes control of the pawn to do its bidding. So me running around, input is getting so input goes through the player controller and passed to the pawn essentially. We'll talk more about these, so don't worry about these terms right now. I'm seeding you for future classes. All right. Your goal with the assignment that you have, basically make a third-person project. Take this level and make it like 3 to 4 times bigger. So one of the things I can do, again, so let's talk about these gizmos right here. This is the move gizmo. You can see right here. And I can move this, but if I grab one of the arrows, I can move it around. You can technically move it around with 2 axes or all 3 of them. Yeah, you need to do it with practice, and you might still not like it at all. Like I just don't. One of the things that I need to address up here, there's a button up here that transforms the gizmo between what's in world space. So world coordinates versus local coordinates. Let me grab. Yeah, this has an arrow. So if I rotate this 45 degrees, that's the wrong 45 degrees. That's Unity 45. There we go. So now when I spawn in, I'm going to be looking in this direction. And we press play. There you go. Now I'm pointing. That's the direction I'm pointing when I spawn in. So that's just basically what happened, but just by making a rotation on this object. All right. Now you can see there's this blue arrow that represents my forward direction facing on this. Now if I go and turn this to local, you can see the red arrow is joined where that blue arrow was. So in Unreal, the red arrow is the x-axis, and that is your forward direction. Green is the right axis, and blue is the z-axis, which is up in Unreal. Those who are taking Unity have used Unity. This is not the same as Unity. Unity went in a different direction, for better for worse. But this when we say something is the local coordinates, it represents based on the rotation it has. So because this is rotated 45 on the Z, it's going to point down this way. And if I go, say 20 here, it's going to go up in that direction. Let's put that back. If I could do 45 here, you can see it's rotated on that axis in that way. So my gizmo represents the orientation of the object. Now I'm going to put this back because this does not make any sense. Now if I click back on here, I should put that back for one moment. If I go back to global axis, you can see that basically this is the global x-axis. So when I go in this direction, I am increasing this value in the world direction. Up here. Again, I'm at 92. We can say 200. And now I am up here in the world. That's a good question. It'll probably reorient me. So when I spawn in, it's gonna ignore the rotation of the object. It's gonna my forward direction will be the only thing that will be kept. For the game, this actually doesn't make any sense to do this. The axis here makes on the z-axis makes any sense. It's a spawn point. I mean, so put this back to 100. Press play. There we go. So I'm not falling when I start right away. Let's grab this brush right here, and I can duplicate this one of 2 ways. There is Shift D, no Control D, and so you saw it shift slightly. I'm going to undo this for one moment. There is a grid up here. It starts at 10. 10 is very small. All right, so units in Unreal are in centimeters by default. Could you jump to it being meters? Yeah, sure, but we're talking, if you did that, then your game is like we're building spaceships as opposed to, yeah, we're jumping a scale of 100 right away. We're going with like vehicles and spaceships are more important than human characters.
The map is way bigger.
What was that?
I had a few months ago, I tried doing this on my own.
Yeah, and one of the things is we're not even gonna deal with terrain and you can go really big with maps in Unreal. We're not gonna do anything with that regards because we don't need to right now. But so I'm gonna jump up to 500 because that actually like right now that makes more sense. So when I hit the floor. Let me click on this again. All right, Control D, and you can see that this jumped 500 on the X and Y axis, and that's normal Unreal behavior. And I can now move this around as I see fit. And the goal is that it's actually. I'll put this in the corner. I'll put this down to 100 to get a little more fine detail. We'll do that. That'll be fine. So I've got this little platform over here. I can grab you. You can see it's smaller jump when I duplicate it. Okay, I'll just bring this in. So I have something to jump up on to get up there effectively. And so basically, if you want to duplicate things, you can use the duplicate command. If you want to duplicate something in place, so I want to duplicate this. I can use Control C, Control V, and it gave me a copy of that in place. So if you want to use the copy and paste commands, go right ahead. I'm going to plug them into this wall over here. Pull you out. There we go. So the goal of the assignment is to take what you've been given here and make it 3 to 4 times bigger at least. That's the goal. And I'm not looking for crazy gameplay. I'm not looking for gameplay. No. You're not level designers. I'm not looking for that type of design. And if you were, if this was a level design class, we'd have it totally. Right now, we'd be having a totally different discussion. The goal right now is that can you place down cubes? Can you move things around? Can you use what's here already to build something? Something that, hey, it's a playground. I'm jumping around and it'll be interesting. That's all I'm looking for right now with the lab and what you're doing. And it's more of a shakedown because basically as a designer and a programmer, this is something you need to do to be efficient. Right? If you can again, we're making the jungle gym example so we can test the movement for our character. We're making a zoo to see the monsters are performing as they should be. And you could be scripting things, be like, this monster needs food, and this other object is the food. I press a button here, and it spawns food. Does the AI for the monster do what it's supposed to do? Type stuff. That's what these maps are designed to be. They're not production. They're not production maps. They're not maps going in the game. A great example that for me, from my history, is that when I was working with the Source Engine in my master's project, I went through the um, first map. Valve released the first map to Half-Life 2 for everyone to see. And I went through that map and figured out where the cinematic nodes and how they performed. I was one of the first few people to do that with the Source Engine. I turned around and then created example maps for my team to use to understand and our game is full of little cinematics. One of the team leads of that particular project, this was Eclipse for Half-Life 2. Two of the people who I worked with on that project, basically the brain trust people, two of them went to Bethesda. Jeff Brown is one of those people. He was the lead level designer on Skyrim. Hey, backdoors is a cool idea. That's definitely his influence on things. Daryl Bringer is the other one. Jeff would be the lead level designer on Starfield, and Daryl would be the lead level procedural level designer for Starfield. I think Daryl has left, but Jeff is still in Bethesda. So, Yeah, this is people who I've worked with and graduated with. Just a few people. We'll talk. I can talk more about that later on. But ultimately, I mean, we were using Unreal back in our guild hall days, where we've used Source. We've used different engines. Um, so again, I'm going to just grab. There are a couple pieces, things over here. This is basically a post-process volume. Don't worry about this. This is the skylight. This is big O, pretty sky, part one. Sky atmosphere, pretty sky, part two. The volumetric clouds, more pretty stuff. You can delete and return these as you see fit. But the big one right here is the directional light. This is basically simulates the sun for the most part for this level. So you can see down here, there's some shadow here on the side. That's because it's angled in this particular direction. We'll talk more about lights and the skylight and what to do with lighting later on. We will create some point lights in the next lab. We'll actually create some point lights and turn them on and off, which is a little world for 3D engines. So don't worry about these entities. I'm literally just going to take this object and copy and paste in place. I'll move it over here. And I'm holding down Shift to add to. So when I've got this selected, I want to add to my selection. I'm holding down Shift and selecting that as well. That's a convention you'll see often. Copy paste because I just want to move this down, and now I can move this wall over, so I can extend my space. All right, so I'll worry about this. Oh, yeah, worry about it being walled in properly later on. But one of the things I will do right now is I'm actually going to go run, and I'm going to run off the side of the platform. And in Unreal, you can see that my character disappeared. So the actor fell out of the world and fell way down, 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 down. And there's a point in Unreal, they have what's called the Z kill. Basically, after a certain, if an actor falls below a certain height, the actor is just removed from the world. It's just removed. It's just killed. The problem is that this template isn't set up to account for the Z kill for the character. So don't fall out of the world, please. If you're gonna fall out of the world, make sure you have a brush. Later on, we will account for that. We can be like, hey, we'll make a brush. If that happens, teleport the player to X location to bring it back to the world. That's how there's in Dishonored, one of the early tutorial levels, you're jumping in this astral plane with your character, and if you fall off one of those things, you fall. It's interesting. You fall. It basically teleports you. You fall and hit a trigger, so you don't hit the kill Z, and then that teleports you back to the beginning to an area above where you started. And you fall. So you basically, it looks like you fall out of the world back to the beginning of the level, essentially. And it's something that Arcane did with the engine. Something that's not very easy to do with the level design tools, with what we have. And that's something we can look at later on in another class, doing stuff like that. But yeah, here I just basically have extended things. Are there any questions about anything that we need to do? I'll feel. Just so you know, let's go through the content draw one more time. I can make this bigger. Architecture. So here's some architecture pieces. So matches that you can use. They've got some audio. Most of it is. Don't worry about audio right now. Blueprints. We'll worry about blueprints materials. If you want to play with particles, like, hey, I'm gonna throw fire right here. So basically, I've got a fire on that platform. Now it's a particle system. So you want to play with particles, go right ahead. Of course, right now it's not doing anything because it's just a particle system. If I wanted to do damage, there's some scripting that we needed to do. Let's go to content draw. Props, again, I brought in the statue, there's doors, there is, the Unreal seat. Shapes, so if you wanted, like, I want a noodle. Here we go. Here is our noodle shaped thing. I want, let's put, here is basically a little pyramid, and I can scale this up, be like, hey, click on general again for those pieces. So say 4 by 4 by 4. It's not enough, but you're getting the point right here. I've just scaled it up. Probably need to go 6 by 6 or something, and move it over a little bit. So here is my pyramid top over here. Back shapes, textures. Yeah, these are all things that were used to build materials, so don't worry about this folder. And there's more things that we can look at as we go on. There'll be other folders we'll be looking at. We'll be looking at game modes and characters and stuff left and right. Again, the goal for this week, can you build something simple with Unreal with the pieces you have here? Throw materials on, make it look interesting. Not perfect, but interesting. So that's pretty much the lecture for tonight. As soon as I stop it, I'm going to upload it to YouTube so you'll have your own version of the lecture. Are there any questions? No? So at this point, basically, the lecture is going to be over, and you're pretty much done for tonight. That basically is go work at home. If you got questions, concerns, get me on Discord, get me on. Send me a message on Canvas. Send me an email. Get a hold of me on Discord. How are you all feeling so far? Have fun this week. That's my goal. Have fun. If you're stressing out about this assignment, you're overworking it. Stop the recording here.